Hi, everyone. Welcome to Toolio's platform demo. My name is Linda George. I'm your solutions consultant here at Toolio. But more importantly, I am a former planner. I spent about 15 years leading teams at brands like Urban Outfitters and Athleta across apparel, footwear, and beauty. I've been on your side of the table. I know what it feels like to stare at a crashing spreadsheet at 11 p.m. the night before an open to buy meeting, and then what it takes to make that one change in a legacy system, making one update, waiting minutes for it to recalculate and show the impact. And that's exactly what Tulio is built to solve, built by retail people for retail people. Our user interface, our forecasting, our workflows, they all align with how planners, buyers, and allocators actually think and work. Today, for our demo, we're going to cover three modules: merchandise plan, assortment plan, and allocation. Merchandise plan is that top-down financial framework. This is where you set your targets. This is where you plan by product category, brand, channel, or even wholesale count. This is where you're open to buy and where your what-if scenarios live. Those flow into assortment planning to inform those product decisions. And that's where assortment planning comes in. This is where those financial targets translate into product decisions, what to buy, how much to buy, and which clusters for those buys should go to. And essentially, the ultimate output here are purchase orders. Purchase orders that connect directly to your ERP for that smooth, clean handoff. And last, we have allocation. This is where those product decisions become execution. The right units, the right sizes to the right stores at the right time. This is the execution of the actual product once it's come in, either from your distribution center or direct from the vendors. All of this we're able to support within Toolio. Today, we're going to cover all three modules. Please feel free to drop in any Q&As you might have throughout the session, or I'm happy to cover towards the end. Okay, so we will start in merchandise plan. This is our merchandise planning platform. We're sitting right alongside assortment plan and allocation. We're looking at my 2026 open to buy, and I have it broken out by month. I've actualized it to the end of May, and last week's results have already flown into the system. And what I'm able to see here are those instant results of my business. I'm able to read information like inventory, sales, margin, PO on order information, receipt targets, turn, all of that I'm able to see instantaneously. Right now, I have it pulled in to look at it by channel. So what that means is if I want to expand this for retail, I can expand to see this level of detail at the channel level. So whether that be for web, wholesale, store, however we want to group it. And then if I want to layer on different functions on top of that, which means to drill in and deeper into my business. So I might want to know initially by channel, then I might want to dig in even further and see by division or department and class. And then you can also layer in other things like product type, whether that be core or seasonal product. That's one way to think about it, whether it's season, fabrication, all of the attributes that are important to you, we're able to support here within Toolio. So think of this as looking at the same set of data, but looking at it in different ways, different lenses or perspectives of the organization to support how your teams work. And then speaking of all the metrics that we do support, you'll see across the left, I have a whole slew of metrics I've selected. So I have inventory at the top, followed by sales, margin, and so on. What this means is Toolio comes out of the box with almost 250 plus metrics. You're able to select which metrics you want to see, rearrange the order of what's important to you. And then within each metric, you can also select variants. So whether I want to look at a few different variants, whether that be plan, last year, and double LY, or if I want a whole slew of information with plans, builds, LY, double LY, percent to plan, variance to plan, all the different iterative ways we're talking about the business, you're able to pull this in at that metric level. So you can really curate a specific open to buy that suits the business. And then of course, for us, when we're thinking about all these metrics, for us, it's about that transparency. So if we want to know how something is calculated, I could hover over the metrics and then right click, and it gives me the calculation for every metric within my solution. We don't want to make this a black box where you're not sure what that metric is or how that's calculated. We want to make all of that very flexible and easy to use instantaneously. Okay. And then from an input and output perspective, what this means is I'm also able to adjust. So whether I want to reforecast the good old fashioned way with the user input, I could do that directly within Toolio itself and key in those targets. And by doing that, my system is actually holding the different penetrations all the way down to the different levels of granularity. So it gives me an output based on my changes. I have a preview into what the original was versus the input, and then I'm able to edit as needed. We don't spread the same amount all throughout. We're holding those different penetrations so that you're starting from a starting point that makes sense and relevant to the business. Okay. And then you can also think of it from specific inputs and outputs from targets. So if you had maybe a target for weeks of supply and you had a specific target that you were vested to hit for July, for example, you can also select that. I could select here on what I want to impact. Maybe at this point, I can impact just receipts. I get a little message saying that's what's going to get changed. And if I wanted to turn faster, or maybe I want to even turn slower than July at weeks of supply, it's currently at 7. If I want to take this to 8, I can see what additional receipts I'll need to get there. Or conversely, if I want to go backwards and improve my turn, I could do that as well. And it gives me the number and the targets I need to march towards to get there. It's quick and instantaneous, so you're not doing any back of the envelope math off to the side trying to calculate how to get to those specific targets as well. Okay. And currently we're looking at 2026. If I wanted to flip forward in time, flip back in time, I'm able to do that pretty instantaneously. That also means budgeting or thinking about future plans is also a few clicks away. So if I had to think about what that would look like for 27, I would seed the specific budget. So I could plan this year to be for 2027. I'll pick what I want that to base off of, 2026, a mix of actuals and planned for me. And then I can also apply a specific weight. So whether I want that to be a 20% growth across the brand, all of my metrics will raise 20%, and then I can adjust underneath the covers. I can also do weighted average over 1 to 3 years as well, and kind of layer that on as I think about it. Lots of flexibility in terms of how I think about in-season and preseason planning here. Okay. Another functionality that we also have here is forecasting. So rather than thinking of it from more of that user-driven forecast, the system can actually give you a forecast. So once the system has actualized for the week, you will come in here, right-click on forecast, and then you could determine the period of time, what level of granularity you want that forecast to go down towards, and what volume you want to consider. Maybe the last 4 weeks of trend have been really strong for the business and you wanted to take that and carry that trend forward. This is exactly where Toolio does that. What we do is we provide that smart start so you have an instant forecast and then you're able to adjust as needed depending on the needs of the business. Very flexible here as well. Okay. And then within merchandise plan, we also offer different perspectives. So thinking about whether that be store teams or wholesale teams or even the finance team, you can have different plans that live independently and also speak and merge into each other. I pulled up a version of the store plan. So what this looks like is very similar layout, similar metrics I might want to see, but slightly condensed for more of a store view. And I can expand this to see more of that location level detail. So if I want to see this by store selling, but maybe I want to pull in something like region and layer that on top. So you can drill into that as your store fleet continues to grow and is a bigger part of the discussion. Instead of having to speak to individual stores, you can think of it more from a region, district, all of those different hierarchies you have within the system are also available here. Okay. And then also in wholesale, what that means would be to plan by wholesale accounts, whether it be majors, minors, or planning by individual accounts, all of that we're able to support. And long range plans, which is for the finance team, really to have more of a 2 to 5 year perspective on what those targets would look like from an inventory and sales perspectives. Great. With all of these reports that we have with all the functionality that we have in merchandise plan, we also come with a slew of reporting. So all of the inputs that you're doing from a plan perspective, from an LY, you could stack those against each other so you can really get a read of the business. How does your results from last week help to inform what that means from your plans for the go forward, right? That's really what planners are doing on a daily basis. And that's what Toolio helps to show here. So I'm showing a few out of the box reports that we provide. What this is, best practices from a lot of our customers, whether that be looking at specific channel mix, the contribution. You want to look at fast turning categories. You can create specific filters so you're able to see where you have specific thresholds and just show you the categories where it's relevant to that. I'm gonna hit that load here. Or you might have slow turning categories. You want to look a little bit at specific categories and see what the strategy needs to be. Sales to stock relationship, inventory relationship as it relates to sales. All of that you're able to show here very dynamically with a click of a few buttons. A lot of our customers come from Excel. So the editability and flexibility here is very much like a pivot table. So similar to how you're pulling things into rows and columns, same functionality here, because we want to make that adoption as easy as possible. Okay. And so what this means is with Toolio, with Merchandise Plan, you have flexibility, insights into lots of different metrics within the system, and automation from day one. Once we've integrated with your tech stack, what this means is you're coming in, reading results of the business and making changes and insights from there rather than spending a lot of the bulk of your time setting up those results. Okay. So that sums up Merchandise Plan. From here, we will move into Assortment Plan. And what Assortment Plan looks like is where that product information really lives with Toolio. One way to think about this is maybe to think of it more from a graphical or a gallery view. So rather than thinking about it in a grid-like view, which as a planner, I'm more used to, but thinking across my merchants, my buyers, they may want to see more of a visual representation. So you could actually plan an assortment plan using more of a visual lens if that's how you prefer. So what I'm looking at now is my in season. I filter to the year, same functionality. I'm able to select which metrics I would like to see, the level of detail, how I've planned the year, how things are actualizing, all of that I'm able to see here as well. I'm going to flip us back to grid view. So at the grid view, what this shows is a detailed roll-up of all of the products that encompass my assortment. I'm looking at my 2026 entirety of my assortment. I can also filter to specific time periods, whether that be for spring, summer on the quarterly, or even by collection. Thinking of it more back to that Excel instance, you are able to really filter in and out, whether you want to filter into specific categories. Maybe you want to filter into core versus new and think of ladder plans for your core product and newness plans separately. All of that you're able to do here with Toolio as well. That first connection with Toolio from assortment plan into merchandise plan is really here in our roll up here. So what this does is give me a quick insight to where my merchandise plan has been set for the year and where my assortment has been rolling. I've pulled in a few metrics that are really relevant to me and important to the business. And now I have a quick insight into where I'm over plan, where I'm under plan, and missing specific targets. We have lots of robust reporting in the background to drill into this further, but this is that first insight where that merchandise plan starts to inform your assortment, how you want to assort into specific products of the business, and what that means for the go forward. Whether that's a core product, a new product, you can see the entirety of your assortment all in one very clear view here. Okay. Great. And then from here, I want to go and talk about forecasting a little bit. So of course, with all of the products that we're seeing down below, we have some product information, whether that be the style numbers, SKU count, division department, some of the hierarchical information and attributes that we've selected. And of course, with assortment planning, there's going to be a whole robust list of different attributes, whether that be not just the ones that we saw in merchandise plan, you can expand beyond that to have even more attributes, whether that be down to the fabrication, sleeve length, different silhouettes that you might not necessarily plan by, but want to attribute so you can measure and plan your business. Within each of the items that we're seeing here, what Toolio does is provide a rate of sale for all of the products. So it's giving it a forecast for every single product in my assortment. If I click into one of my products here, what I'm able to see is drill in even further and see a full robust set of details. So I've pulled in some metrics from inventory, from sales, my original forecast, any receipts and PO information I might want to see for what's coming. And that same view we saw in merchandise plan, also relevant here. Here, I can flip this to look at it more from a weekly basis. I can look at it on a monthly, just depending on my cadence of how I want to plan the business. I'm able to do that here. What we do at Toolio is we always want to provide a representation of the original forecast. So that's how we think of modeling your products as they're new and they're coming into the business. Once we start to get the actual sales read of those products, what we do is actually retrend that sales expectations for the go forward. So knowing our sales has actually come in slightly below our original forecast, the system goes in and retrends that for the go forward. And how does it do that? It actually uses machine learning and statistical modeling and competes those against each other. We call this tournament forecasting. This is when these models are back tested to see what the best ideal output was and then use for the go forward. And then of course, any changes here, we're able to read and react based on different reads of the business. And then of course, with Toolio, we never want to make a machine learning model or an AI a black box. So as an owner of the business, we also give you complete editability and adjustability here. So if you wanted to adjust the forecast, whether that be for a specific core product or across a group of products, you're able to do that as well, so that you can inform where the forecast should go rather than the system recommending what that should look like. And then with the recommendation of the forecast, in the background, we also provide a receipt recommendation. So what is the receipts that we need down to the size level to buy for these specific products to maintain that forecast? Here I've dictated how frequently I want to order into this specific product, what the lead time looks like, what the safety stock should be for each of my products. So what is that minimum threshold? So that based on the forecast, it knows when to re-trigger an additional receipt quantity. And based on that, I'm able to adjust here. If I wanted to layer in MOQs, we could do all of that in the background, whether that be down at the size, style, or color level, so that we're thinking of that receipt quantity that makes sense for the business. Okay. So that sums up in-season planning and how I would think of the current forecasting and receipt methodology here. From here, I'll move us into preseason. In preseason, it really starts with hindsight analysis at Toolio. We're actually analyzing the historical data and we're building a marginal return curve. What this does is we identify where is that point of diminishing returns. We're cutting off the long tail of that inventory. This is when those additional products stop being productive and they're not meaningful and they're not driving sales. They're just creating inventory bloat. From here, what the system does is gives you a recommendation based on your specific time period of how that hindsight was actually recommended. I did this at the department level. You can do it at various levels, down to the class, product type, and even layer in different clusters. So whether you want to look at it for e-com or retail separately, you're able to do that here as well. From there, we move into rationalization. This is where the system takes my MFP targets, my merchandise plan targets. So I've planned this specific time frame to be up 20%. And it takes my recommended cleansed effective choices and gives me a new target. So what are the actual choices I need to hit my specific merchandise plan? So it takes a robust amount of data, historical, marries that with your merchandise plan and gives you that iterative plan of what that looks like. From here, you can create specific lines to see this into assortment rows so that you have individual placeholder lines for all of those 30 choices of what that rate of sale will look like, what it looks like at not only the individual product level, but also by specific cluster so that you know what those products would need to do to hit those targets. I find this really helpful because what this gives you is that starting point from expectations, right, of what that assortment groups would look like and what that total roll up should be. And of course, if the adjustability still lives here as well. So if you do not want to follow this recommendation, you're able to adjust those choices and add additional products as needed. Okay. Another way we think about planning for preseason is also thinking about compare mode. What compare mode does is look back in time to say how specific products have done. So I could click back into specific time periods, whether that be on a seasonal lens, a yearly lens. I could look at it different ways. And then I can see what that performance looks like and how I want to use some of those product selling information to model my future go forward. So if I wanted to filter for, if I was making an assortment for 27 spring and I want to use 26 as the rationale, I could pull in some of the historical comp selling information and drag in some of these items. I could create them as a like for like placeholder where I'm creating similar products to this specific product that we had previously, but slightly updated. We can choose to extend this product, but we don't want to end the life of this product or continue to, have receipts to inform. Or we can have this as more of a repeat item. If it's a seasonal product that you've ended and slowed down and you want to bring back in for seasonal selling, we could do that as well. And you reuse your existing BOP as part of that. So you're only buying receipts to fill in to that go forward forecast as well. Lots of great functionality here from new season planning as well. Okay. And then of course, lastly, we have tons of reporting in Assortment Plan as well. So whether that be reporting to look at it for POs, you want to look at what's on order versus what still needs to come in, what hasn't been actioned by the teams, all of that you're able to get. We also provide a whole slew of reporting at different levels of detail, whether that be really high level, like a Monday morning report rolling up, or seeing performance of bestsellers to plan, how my top products are selling, what that sell through looks like, weeks of supply, on order quantity, so I know what I need to action, which is an example here of the bestsellers report. Or if I wanted to drill in even further and reconcile the MP AP reconciliation we looked at earlier, I can really drill into more of a detailed view. So if I want to reconcile for maybe spring 26 and really click into each of the months, I can pull in different levels here. If I can pull in division, I can pull in by channel. I can really see where the discrepancy lies from where the assortment plan rolls up to where the merchandise plan is and where that delta is and how I need to adjust that gap further. That's really what Toolio provides at all moments in time. Okay. So to sum up assortment plan, this is where we create the individual product strategy. Every product within assortment plan has a forecast. We determine how long it needs to live, where it's going to sell, what the receipts we need to support for it, and continually provide that as a quantity so that you're able to adjust based on the most recent week's read as well. From there, you're able to execute as a purchase order. So using some of those receipt quantities to inform your POs and how they're created, you're able to do that directly within Toolio. And we're able to integrate with many different ERPs, or essentially where that PO information lives. We can send this directly into the ERP so that POs have been written. And once the POs have been written, they come right back into Toolio. So you're able to see it in some of these high-level reports in terms of what that PO quantity looks like, what's been actualized, and what still needs to be actioned on. Okay. And then from here, we'll go into allocation. For allocation, before we jump in directly into how allocation works, I want to start with a dashboard because our approach to allocation is fundamentally different because we think of it as an enablement tool for allocation teams rather than having to make all of those decisions. So from an allocation perspective, you might come into allocation and first review some reports and dashboards because our system has already done all of that automation for you. We've actualized all of the data for sales. We know the inventory position, and we also have a forward demand for every single store location within your fleet. And for those stores, what we do is we pull the inventory to support it. So rather than it being reactive to last week's business, we have a strategy for what that forward demand looks like based on the shape of demand at that product level. And then we're pulling the inventory to support it. So from an allocation perspective, I might come in here, look at some dashboards, get some quick insights on what I have currently in my inventory, what the selling rate has been for the last 4 weeks, for last week itself, and then what the recommendation is from an in-transit perspective. I could see this view by store. So now I know what those recommendations are by door. If I want to drill in further, I can see where that ties into division, department, class. That same level of attribute planning continues throughout our platform so that you're able to have visibility into the different ways the planning team will talk about the business versus the buying team. We want to keep that continuous throughout our platform. So now I'm able to see the recommendations for men's versus women's. And if I want to drill in further to department or class, I'm able to do that here as well. So I really know what the strategy the system is recommending. And then from here, as an allocator, My goal is to assess the recommendations essentially, and then see if any changes need to be made. And if I had to make those changes, I would move right into allocation strategies. This is where I get a view of all of my products in my assortment. I can see the time frame for when they're selling, the start date, end dates for all the products, and then a list of where those products are intended to sell. You can see for a lot of this, you'll see that it says assortment plan. With Toolio and that connectedness from assortment plan into allocation, all of that intent for how we bought the product, how we planned the product, where we want that product to sell, all of the information flows automatically into allocation. So what that means is there's no disconnect between the intent of how that product was bought to how we want to allocate to execute on that strategy. It's really a clean flow through rather than having to dig up preseason assortment lists or buy sheets from previous seasons to understand what those strategies were. And then once that's rolled in, what Toolio does is we take that and provide an output in terms of what that strategy looks like. So we provide a recommendation down to the store level for that specific product. So if I click on that one specific SKU, I can see what the allocation strategy looks like, which stores it's being recommended to, not only for the current week, but also forward out as far as I need. And then if I had to expand for any of the stores, I can also see what the need is at the size level. So always considering at the size, location level and allocation and pulling the inventory to support it. Lots of great reporting and functionality here as well. But essentially all the recommendations have been done for you. And then as an allocator, you come in here and you would make changes to strategy, whether that be to end some specific locations or change contributions, or if there's a reload that wasn't planned but only starting tomorrow, or there's a weather event, things where you want to stop an allocation strategy for a specific store, you could do that directly within Toolio as well. Okay. And then how is that strategy created? What we do is once the strategy has fed in from assortment planning, all we're inputting is the order cycle, which is how frequently do we want to allocate, and the safety stock. So what is that minimum threshold we want to have across all of our doors for it to trigger an additional need for transfer orders? As you know, for many products, you may have a varying version, right? So you might have core product with one safety stock versus newness having a different. So it's very flexible at that item level here. Okay. And then when we're thinking about it, whether from a new item that's just been being sent and allocating, or whether that be for an existing item that has tons of history, we're able to support both. We're able to do that down to not only the location and size level, but also able to see the life cycle of specific products. So if you wanted to stop allocating a specific product, you could determine what the phase out dates should look like. When do you want to stop sending out the product and maybe hold back more at the DC if you want to exit more from a web strategy? All of those different perspectives you're able to do directly in allocation. Okay. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on reporting. Allocation also comes with a whole slew of reporting as well. So whether that be a roll up at the store level where I'm looking at inventory, units, the sales expectations, what that transfer orders look like for this week, and even layering on capacity. So if I have capacity targets at the unit level, I can see the delta from what's being allocated to where I'm being over capacity. Or if I want to look at it more of an allocation roll-up view and see what is the strategy for this week, what is the strategy by division, all of that we're able to do here and pivot as needed. So I can immediately get insights into what's being allocated this week at the product level or even at the category level, depending on how detailed you want to get. And then, of course, we have Toolie. Toolie is our LLM model directly within Toolio itself. So what this means is now we have a place for plans, actuals, everything to live within Toolio. And now you want to get the insights from it. So of course, reporting is a great way to get those insights, whether they're scheduled reports or, typical reports you're going into every Monday morning to read the business. Another option here is using Toolie. This is your planning assistant. What this means is you could ask it questions directly inside the platform. So I asked it questions to recap last week's business to plan, and it gave me an entire recap of everything in my business as of last week. So telling it to me by the metrics that are necessary, the metrics I have in my open to buy, what this means from a last 4 weeks trend, what patterns it's seeing, and what that means. It's really reading my business and giving me some insights here. Return rates, all those necessary metrics that I need to know, I'm able to get to. Another functionality that we've recently added to this is skills. So what that means is you can also create pre-built templates within Tooley. So think of it as a structure, how you like to do your recaps. Maybe you want to have a specific chart at the top, followed by some verbiage and details into the business. Whatever that specific format looks like, what that means is because it's a repeatable workflow, you define it once, and then every time you ask Tooley as a skill, it continuously reruns that for you. So same ideas and giving you insights into the business, but now it's a more systematized way to give you those insights in the way that you need it. We actually heard from one of our customers that a planner with almost 20 years of experience, she used Tooley and it produced essentially the exact same report using one of our skills for the quarterly business review. Then it has taken her manually to build it. So she's done this obviously for 20 plus years on a weekly basis, trying to do these recaps. And now with something like Tooley, she can get those insights immediately and then dig into the business on what actions need to go next. And then from here, I also wanted to share that we also do provide MCP connections. So what that means is whether it be, let me scroll up real quickly. So whether that be if your team's already living in a specific AI tool, whether that be Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot, you don't have to choose between what we use at Toolio and what you already have. We're able to use your specific AI tool preference, and you can create that connection. So what that means is it connects through MCP, which is called Model Context Protocol, and essentially a bridge that lets AI look at your data within Toolio. So it has the same API, same interface, all of that works very similarly, and it's reading across your numbers, but you can also layer in other tools you might use, whether that be Google Analytics or other marketing data, all of that you're able to do here. And what I've done here is asked it specific, similar questions that I asked in Tooley, but I have it in more of a graphical format. It's giving me some insights. I could do the same thing. I could dig in deeper, give me more for what this means for the go forward, give me insights, all the same I'm able to do with Tooley, but also outside of Tooley as well. And then from here, maybe I need to make a deck for my exec team, right? So they're asking about risk to the year, what this means. We're halfway through the year. What does this mean for specific divisions, specific categories? With an MCP connection, you can ask it to create specific collateral as well, which I think is a huge time savings. So thinking about those decks that you're making for either, Monday business review or open to buy, you're able to do all of that here directly within the MCP connection. Here we're using Claude for this example, but now I've asked it to give me a complete deck that I can share with the exec team. And now my deck is ready to go. I have quick insights into the business, what the recaps should look like for historical business, and what this means for the go forward plans, right? So now I'm able to bridge all of the information I have and actually have collateral that I'm able to share with the execs for the go forward. So this is very exciting in terms of what this could mean from not only from a business process function and data, but also how much time you're getting back, not having to make any of these, side things such as a deck or a specific sheet you have to fill into or, kind of systematize across the brand. All of that can live here. So Tooley, skills, MCP connection, these are all of the AI initiatives that we have and how we're already getting there for our current customers. Okay. So just to bring it all together, Toolio unifies your entire merchandise lifecycle. Merchandise plan sets those financial targets. Assortment plan translates those into products. And then allocation executes. It's executing the right product to the right store at the right time, all done for you automatically. So the real power isn't just those individual modules, it's really that connected system, one platform and one source of truth. Thank you all for your time today. I'm happy to answer any Q&A. If any of you have any questions, please do let me know or drop those in the chat. Does Toolio have location product level plans? Yes, we do. You can do it at very high level within a merchandise plan. So how we're thinking about location product plans would be more at that store level is how I would think of it. So if you want to plan by store and by location, you could also layer in product here as well. So you could see how specific products are trending, whether men's is really strong in one store versus another, what that distortion looks like by different stores. You're able to layer that in here as well. And of course, you can also roll this up into aggregate attributes, whether that be by region, by district, different ways that you think about the geography of the stores. Also able to do that here as well. I hope that helped to answer your question. And then the other question was, what systems does Toolio integrate with? So we actually integrate with most major ERPs, PLMs, and POS systems. The common ones you've heard, NetSuite, SAP, Oracle, but we're also pretty agnostic. So we are flexible in terms of what that looks like and able to meet you where you currently are in the business. Okay, hope that helped. All right, I'll give it one more minute if there's any additional questions. Great. Thank you all for joining today. Hope you found this informative and helpful in terms of what Toolio offers from a platform perspective. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.